Hi everyone, welcome back to the Rune Shack Radio podcast. I have here with me Meghan Leigh, who we met on Substack. She writes very insightful articles, very well written, and I will drop her links in the comments and in the description afterwards. It's Taste of Truth on Substack, and Megan has a boatload of experience, or at least tales to tell about her time in the New Age scene, let's call it. And I really wanted to get you on because I think it's really important how deceitful and how subversive that whole movement is. And you already told me a few things about it. And that's why I wanted to get you on because it it really it can lead people and does lead people down a very dark path, a path of self-destruction even, which happens for many. And luckily you escaped that. I'm very fortunate because there are plenty of people that don't. And I wanted to pick your brain about it. Like, how did it start for you? How did you get out of it? How what sort of advice would you give people? So, Megan, I'm handing you the podium.
Well, thank you so much, Tina, and I'm really grateful to have come across your work as well and have a past life rune reading, which was very emotional for me, as you know. And I didn't even talk about it publicly too much because there's still so much to chew on and digest, and I look forward to future readings. So, the New Age spirituality, I'm grateful that you're giving me this platform because I don't talk about it too much anymore because I mostly focus on Christianity because it was basically New Age to Christianity to paganism, I guess would be my spiritual journey to my 40 wonderful years of living. And so I was not raised religious. My father kind of was, but didn't. My mom basically won the battle. It's like a secular feminist. He basically went to jail and was recruited while in jail and became kind of a religious zealot when in prison, which is kind of a typical tale. So my mom was like, "Who is this guy?" Not who I married, but she won the battle and got us out of church age of 7. So I didn't. I knew about it. I remember crying, begging Jesus to come to the hearts of my pets, thinking it was so wrong that they would go to hell. I do remember having a little bit of sadness there, but most of my life I was agnostic, not studying philosophy, not studying religion, and was heavily influenced by the music festival culture, if that makes sense. And, maybe it's similar out in Europe. There's a little more, it's, there's all sorts of eclectic, different electronic genres of music. There's the bass that hits you in the head and the heart, and then there's that really low bass that's kind of like, I call it a womp pony, like riding a pony. And that's the bass I like, that really low grimy stuff. Wah, 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 wah. And I was a professional hula hooper. I got to get up on stage with LEDs and fire, and it wasn't just participating. I was also paid to be there. I was also backstage. I was also getting to hang out with. I never went to Burning Man because it takes a week or more off work. And as a personal trainer, as a working class person, that was insane to me. Most of my clients need me there. My job is to be there with them in the gym, not see you later. I'm going to Burning Man for a week. So all my friends did Burning Man. And so I was really plugged into this high level artistic expression and some of the most creative, coolest people on the planet. Do I agree with some of their beliefs now? Definitely not. But I don't really regret some of those experiences and the people that I got to play around with and the collaboration that I got to. But that's kind of what the New Age spirituality is all there is basically in those communities.
Uh, the, when you say there's all there is, do you mean that do they do you mean that more in like they all describe to subscribe to the sort of half-fast Buddhism, or is it more general, the cherry picking, which is very common in that
Ooh.
scene?
Yeah, it would be a blend of both. Definitely
Yeah.
this half-assed Buddhism, definitely the cherry picking of all the things I like. There's a lot of Christ consciousness, the seven ascended masters, and that's really big. The Christ consciousness with makes me want to gag. I want to write on that. In regard consciousness and the discussing that is not what makes me gag. The concept of incorporating Jesus Christ into that is what makes me gag. But yeah, also the Galactic Federation of Light.
Oh,
Do you know about that? And the star seeds, the
yeah.
Pleiadians. So unfortunately, that's what I believed. I believe that I was one of these, star seeds that had been. I see you're smiling. Okay, we are celebrating that I got out of this. Okay, but I did believe all this. It's very embarrassing. My palms are sweating just talking about it. But yeah, I thought I was maybe from the Pleiadian star seed, but either way, I was here to increase the vibration of planet Earth. I was definitely here as like an indigo child. I don't know if you've heard those things, but I was listening to the Galactic Federation of Light downloads, and I'd be journaling intensively. This is 2010, 2011, 2012, just for some context on where we were in time.
And these downloads are those recordings that you can purchase somewhere, or is that just inspiration that you get from the ether?
Great. Great question. I was not doing any sort of mediumship downloads but I was listening to them on YouTube for free, and they were in this weird
Oh,
robotic voice that you would eventually just get used to. But it made it sound like it was like I was getting, downloaded from, so someone was getting the download and was uploading it on YouTube. And also, have you ever heard of a book? They're really big in this community called Seth Speaks, and it's from
no.
1970s. He's a multidimensional being that comes through this woman who does channeled speakings, and there's recordings where you can almost see her frequency changing. It's definitely compelling, and I got really into reading Seth Speaks, and he has all these past lives, and maybe there's some crossover with some of the stuff that maybe that you believe perhaps. But yeah, there is some interesting stuff. So Seth Speaks, there's the Hawthorne material, there's the Merkaba ascensions, the sacred geometry meditations. A lot of that's based in Jewish mysticism now that I know, and I don't like any of that. But yeah, I definitely thought like vibrational consciousness, energy healing. There's a lot of similarities. I'm like looking at my notes between like lessons from the universe, creating heaven and hell through perception. And they're not, some of my beliefs, I don't think were as cliche or as like that typical caricature that might be made of New Age spirituality. They were deep, and I was processing, some bigger things like suffering and how to take control of my attitude and, try not to like, because I was single, I was on my own, I was trying to build my career, I was trying to be an entrepreneur, I was trying to survive in the world. So, I want to give myself credit where it was due that I was really trying. But yeah, Louise Hay, I was obsessed with like some of her, you can heal your life mantras, if you know any of her. So yeah, I had like her work literally plastered all over my studio apartment. And a lot of this was when I was in Colorado, in Denver, Colorado. And so I was by myself, single, recovering from an abusive relationship. So I had a lot of deep wounds and was just grasping for really anything.
Would you say that is common in that scene, that people that are most attracted to these works are people that were in your situation? Or did you notice also people that come from rather stable family lives? Or was it always something fleeing from childhood memories or
Yeah, this is interesting. And I would say most of the people in these scenes, the music festival, the Burning Man scene, are relatively affluent. You know what I mean? Like, are they living on the state and have food stamps and some support? Probably too. You know what I'm saying, though? And in general, most folks in America live a much more blessed life. But uh, I think, I was raised in a working class family, but we had family inheritance. And so we weren't struggling. And why I say that is because when I was enrolled in eating disorder therapy, my therapist said that there are so many clients that come from kind of well-to-do families of hers. So it's kind of like being affluent, having your all your bills paid for, having your college paid for. That's definitely a form of privilege that can be easily criticized and looked down upon from someone else. So I think that there was still suffering there, though. Still a lot of busy parents that were left, like a lot of emotional neglect, a lot of I think modernity. I think just the pain of modernity is what we're all suffering, and we're just trying to fill those holes of like, sexual promiscuity, our daddy issues, the looser bond between mother and daughter, the lack of social cohesion and structure. So yeah, and I gravitated towards the music festival scene because I had attempted suicide when I was 15. I then thought Jesus and God saved me. I'd read the Bible so much. Well, my mom didn't. I took like lots of aspirin, and my mom did not check me in. She just basically gave me a hair tie and a headband. It was like, "Go make yourself puke," and she wanted to protect my reputation. We were kind of in a small town, and she didn't want that to go on my record permanently. And so I stayed up all night. I was praying to God. I got into this little Jesus kick, and it didn't last long because that's when I went to a concert as well. And so I was moved to put my arms up in the air and to praise and to dance. And I didn't feel that when I was trying to go to these church-like communities when I was 16, if that makes sense. And so music festivals, I think a lot of us are gravitated to this group dynamic. There's a lot of emotional regulation that can come from the group mind. You can get really synced up with your favorite song, your favorite band. You can meet people from all over, and all of a sudden they're gonna have your back, like at a festival. If you've ever been, there's some sort of like kind of commune, kind of fake world that's obviously very capitalistic in nature. Obviously, everyone had money to get there, and everything cost money. Unless you're at Burning Man, there's a little difference there, but it's still very capitalist in structure. But I think a lot of us are seeking, a lot of us are trying to heal from pain, and are trying to create and collaborate a better world with like the little tools that we have.
Uh, well, I guess escapism also plays a role in there, because I mean, Burning Man, it only lasts for a week. Well, I don't even blame people for seeking that sort of escapism because we all do it to some extent, especially if it's just a week or a weekend getaway. I don't really see anything wrong with that. It's more when it becomes a lifestyle, and some people really do go from festival to festival, and that's all they do. And then when there aren't any festivals, usually in winter, they seem to just collapse. It's like severe depression. There's nothing that can motivate them, and that
It is
completely
hard.
changes
Yeah.
them.
It does. Sorry to interrupt. It does. I was just thinking like the post-festival blues, like that Monday or Tuesday when you're coming back into reality is the most depressing thing in the world. I think there's a lot having to do with coming down off of drugs. I mean, I personally sobered up relatively early and I never partied as hard as folks do because I was always into health and fitness since I was 16, whether it was disordered behaviors or not. It was still very much like trying to like be healthy, And I blogged. I have we can link my old blog. Like we'll share my Substack, but stuff I was writing in 2014 when I was knee deep in the stuff. It is a hoot. And there's some similarities in my writing styles, which I appreciate. But I wrote Vibing on a New Frequency, and I read this where I was in 2010. So I was super over the drugs and the drinking. And I was like, I was an athlete and I was using 4, 6 hula hoops. And so I would have crowds of 500 people around me entertaining the shit out of them. And so I didn't need to be on drugs because I was getting their energy, this
Yeah,
awesome energy exchange. And so it was so much fun for me. And I would just stay super hydrated and pack all this protein and do a lot of yerba mate. And so, but the come down off of like Molly and acid, I think most folks are doing multiple kinds of drugs all throughout the weekend, on top of that group altered state consciousness experience. I think we really lack in secular society. And I think that's what I learned studying the purpose of religion, that moral cohesiveness, the purpose of rituals, the coming of age routines. Some of that stuff is completely vacant in secular society. And I think that's what festival culture is trying to recreate. Or, I did ecstatic dance, which is a no talking dance practice. And, I don't think all of that's bad. I wish more conservative traditional folks were into some of this shit too, because I think it's really healing to like work through dance. And I love dancing so much. And so there's nothing like that here in Yorktown, Virginia, where I'm at. And so I don't hate all of it, but there was a lot of channeling that I did attend. Well, and like I said, I wasn't into the mediumship on my own. But I mentioned to you that I was into this like galactic federation of light concepts. And so there was this woman who hosted, well, I had stayed up all night on acid at this one event and pretty magical if you've ever done psychedelics. I think they can be abused. They can be a terrible choice for some people and they need to be like literally have a huge warning label on them. But I had had a great time, stayed up all night, and then we were doing this like sunrise workshop where we were channeling our celestial tongues. So learning how to speak the language from our home planet.
right, right.
And so it's basically like speaking in tongues. You know what I mean? So all of us were like, and I basically sounded like I was doing some version of like Chinese and I felt like I was being racist or something. I remember being like super self-conscious of the sounds that I was making, and just how overwhelming still it felt, like the sense of transcendent. And I think that there's just so much going on in regards, we're just humans are highly susceptible we're meaning making creatures, right? And so, I mean, I watch crap TV like Love is Blind, and I don't know if you know any of that stuff, but they can't see each other and they're dating through this wall. And they'll basically be like, your dog's named that? My dog's named that. We're in love. They like make meanings out of really stupid shit. That does not mean you're compatible. That's kind of some of the stuff that I found that I was doing here in the new age, if that makes any sense. And I try not to beat myself up for it, try to honor kind of that part of the human psyche there. But there's a lot of group enforcement as well on top of that trying to amplify meaning. And so it's just really easy to get sucked into it. And that's kind of what you were saying about the harm there that can come from that.
Well, about the speaking in tongues, this is something that I watched on the Mysterious Universe podcast. A woman that was speaking in tongues, very much like the way you're describing, and apparently she recorded it, and it turned out she was speaking some language from some tribe in the Amazon, that had a male words and female words, and she spoke in the male version. And she had a whole adventure about that, and eventually she what the entity that she was channeling was Pachamama, which is an actual goddess from South America. And I wondered, are there any people that you know of who have maybe done similar things or similar experiences? Because that is, I mean, it sounds so woo when I say it and when I hear myself say it, but there is something to it. And channeling is real, by the way. I do believe in it.
Right.
My gripe with it is that, like with that woman, you don't often know what you are channeling if you're just an open conduit. Um, you don't really know if you're not don't know what you're channeling. You also don't really know the intention behind it. Is it good for you? Is it going to lead you down a path of self-destruction? Um, is Do you know what happened to most of those people? Did they eventually get out of it, or did they continue doing that channeling? Or
So I don't have any personal experiences of someone who like got it extremely validated that what they were doing and saying was truthful. And I also fell out of this was so I went to that workshop that I was telling you about up all that was called Emergency, Emerge and See Music Festival in Oregon, super epic, 2008, 2009. So quite a long time ago. I did fall out of communications with some of these folks, but I did just find this one practitioner. She seems to be doing okay though. She shifted. Now she's doing more somatic work and nervous system work and probably got a little more into some tangible, I mean, more tangible work instead of that kind of abstract esoteric. And I'm not against all esoteric, but I kind of it leans a little it challenges me because of the new age stuff and how, like you said, it can be really harmful when you don't know the intention or you don't really know that you're an open conduit. You don't know how to protect your energy, like out of body experiences, astral projection, a lot of those things. Because eventually I want to talk about the New Age to Jesus pipeline, how I got recruited into Christianity from all of this. And I did have a spiritual dream that was part of my conversion story. And so, and that's where a lot of that more awareness of the darker entities that we could have been working with, and that might have been abused and manipulated to some extent, or maybe not, with depending on. I don't. That's why I still want to learn more from you and Fiona about how y'all believe, because I think what happened to me is when I deconstructed out of Christianity. Well, I don't think I know. I went atheist for a while. I was like, none of this shit's real. Fuck all of it. And I'd never been an atheist before. And I'm no longer that, but I still actually really deeply struggle with the concept of even just like different levels of spiritual spirits and like daimons, for example, not actually being demons, but just being, on the hierarchy of spiritual beings, being real jinn. That's all like kind of still new to me. I wouldn't say I disagree with it, but to like incorporate that back into my worldview is going to be a lot for me. And so I think that's where me and you are the meetings of the minds, where you can help me kind of understand more about my experience. But that particular lady, Anahata Sound, is what she went by. She seems to be doing all right. Do I know her personally? Do I know what's going on in her home life? Absolutely not. And do things look great on the internet for it? Sure. So, but I know a lot of folks have committed suicide in the scene.
um,
There's a lot of darkness, there's a lot of drug abuse, there's a lot of sadness, but most of those homies, my Burning Man circus folks, broke up with me in 2020 because your girl was like, fuck all of this nonsense. And so they were like, you're a special kind of stupid, you're QAnon. You know how it is when you didn't get the jab. I lost all my friends. So all of them. So I don't hear from any of them. I don't know what they're up to. They're definitely not involved in my blogs. And when I deconstruct out of Christianity, which we're kind of skipping over a large part, that will probably be in the paid, but I was really reaching back to this community. I was trying to reach back into kind of pulling on some threads of nostalgia that are good when you're trying to rebuild your identity after coming out of a group mentality like that. Like I broke up with my multi-level marketing company. I broke up with a lot of cult-like dynamics and was trying to figure out who the hell am I outside of, I realized how much vulnerabilities and susceptibilities I had been carrying with me since my childhood that had led me to fall into so many different types of
right.
similar thinking patterns.
Yeah.
So none of those friends were really wanting to be there for me. None of them wanted to like remind me of who I was when I was this professional circus performer. No one held a mirror up to me. So I don't really think a lot of those, I think the festival culture is fake. I think those community feelings that I felt were all fake. They were all not real connections, like the stuff I'm really seeking, like a real tribe, like a kin knit, I have your back, like a blood bond. That's the shit I'm seeking. And that's what I think. If you stop doing drugs and you stop partying and you stop believing in Bernie Sanders, they're going to fucking dump you. So that was my experience from this community. Breaks my heart.
That is actually quite common, not just in the festival scene. That I mean, we can experience the same thing when we go to the same bar every Friday. We When we stop going to that bar and we stop getting completely shit faced at that bar with the same people, we start to realize we don't really have a lot in common with them. That's the only thing we have in common is that we were getting shit faced together and liking it, which I guess it's a part of the normal human experience, both, by the way, that we all kind of do that to some extent. And then
Yeah.
some people get completely stuck in that, and then others
Mhm.
just break free from it because it's not fulfilling, it doesn't satisfy them. There's no, I mean, some people really do have deeper needs than that spiritually, emotionally, and some people manage to shut that off completely.
Yeah, like you said, that's that escapism if we're just getting, and I've never been into drinking, and I could count on one hand how many times I drank alcohol, but I definitely puff tough with some marijuana. So we call that California sober here in the States. But so I don't want to judge people, you know what I'm saying? But like it just never like rocked me. It just always made me feel really silly and I have lots of energy. Like I can dance and get up on stage. I think it gives people liquid confidence or a liquid jacket or something they call it.
That's
So I
courage.
understand. And if courage, that's right. And so if people need that so they can have fun, please, because I'm bored. If you know what I mean, when I'm hanging out with people. But I went to a really big drinking school and they're like, oh, you'll be a drinker after going to Radford. And I didn't. I was just
Yeah.
always much more in pursuit of fitness and trying to take care of my body, and alcohol just is really an opposite vibrational frequency to that, and I could feel it instantly, and it just never really resonated with me.
It's very much a depressant, alcohol.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the moment, because it does. Some people get like a rapid heartbeat just from the thought of drinking alcohol. And I'm one of those people, by the way, that like, oh yeah, I would love a beer. And I get excited about that. But on the other hand, I, like you, I completely stopped drinking to excess. I have a beer with dinner because any more than that, it just the backlash you get from that is terrible. And I'm lucky actually that when I had that phase of probably drinking more than I should, I was actually working, and it was also culture. After work, you all get together because it was culinary industry, and drinking is a big problem there. Everybody is on something all the time. So okay, it's similar but different.
Yes, I worked as I waited tables at Buffalo Wild Wings, so I know very well, and other Italian restaurants and things when I was in college. And they always get smoke breaks, and they're getting 5 minutes, 10 minutes to go smoke a cig. Your girl not smoking cigs, and so I actually got my manager to give me 5 minute hula hooping breaks. So I was like in the back, and the friggin' back of house guys are looking at me, being like, "What is this freak doing again?" In Blacksburg, Virginia, in the early 2000s. Now it's probably a little more cool, but I was pioneering shit back then. I was like, I get a break if you guys get, because they get lots of breaks to go puff a cig. And I'm like, hello, I haven't had a break all day because I don't smoke. That's whack. So my manager felt me.
Oh,
So yes.
I've known people that picked up smoking just to get a break.
Yeah, your girl couldn't go down that route, but I did win the battle with the hula hoop breaks. And some of the staff was like, this girl is like out here. I mean, they were kind of like teasing me, making fun of me, but I still, walk that walk, being like, we all need a break, need to get outside. And so I do know the scene of like, and it was really hard for me again, kind of like the festival culture, the restaurant scene. Oh my gosh, there's so much abuse there, and but it doesn't mean you can't enjoy. Like there is an artisan craft behind beer and mead making and wine making, and so I don't want to belittle some of that. I know some of our friends in the pagan community get a lot of joy out of making mead, and I think there's a lot of room for that, especially Northern Italians. Hello, wine making. So I think we can celebrate it. It's just like sugar, just like caffeine, just like food, all marijuana, all of these things can be easily abused. So it's more about finding that healthy relationship with enjoying uh, the craftsmanship of something or the essence of something without abusing it.
And about that New Age to Jesus pipeline, I actually hear that a lot. And I seen these interviews on YouTube, like X Switch talks about her
Yes.
experience, and it's always kind of the same. I mean, they weren't serious practitioners to begin with, and you can immediately tell by the way they're talking about it. It's like, oh yes, it started with tarot cards, and before I knew it, I was lighting candles and performing lemon spells. I put a curse on that one ex. It's like that's what every teenage girl does. It's true though. I mean, maybe not every teenage girl, but the ones that have that inclination towards the esoteric, and that's quite a few people actually. They all almost all start that out that way. That because that's the most accessible. And then when they get out of it, because they have some really bad experiences with it, because they don't really know what they're doing, and nobody really warns them against the dangers of it, and you will attract these the attention from spirits, and most of them are not that friendly. Okay, they're also cowards, but if you don't know that and you don't know how to handle that, it's very very scary. And that's why so many people jump to Christianity or become born again. I do see that a lot. Was that the same for you?
Yeah. And I was like, evil's real. I've been in the wrong kingdom the whole time. I've been worshiping Lucifer. I've been talking to demons. It was, I mean, to the core, because I had always wanted to be spiritual. I always felt like I was kind of LARPing, even in the new age. But I've struggled with depression and suicidality, as we've mentioned, my whole life. And so I was like, I don't want to struggle with this. I don't want to feel this way. As you can tell, I also feel very joyful, very playful. I have lots of energy. So it just felt wrong. I felt like my heart and brain were kind of stuck and I wanted to move through something. But yeah, so, mentioned the pandemic, scandemic, whatever you want to call that. I was living in New York. It was awful. And I was fighting all the time with my husband because how miserable I was in such an environment where they were like worshiping the mandates. So he moved me to Charleston, South Carolina. So I was living away from him and I was living with someone called Shelley Whitelight. And I swear to you, there will be a Netflix documentary covering the cult that she starts one day. But we had both known each other through the like hula hooping community, and I am an open book. Like what you see is what you get if you can't pick up on that. And did you know that other people aren't like that? Because that's what I learned when I lived with this lady is she had put on this, show. I had taught workshops with her. I had traveled the country with her and put on things with her, but had never really lived with her. And yeah, and that's probably kind of what you're trying to get at is like these people in the new age can like put together, a course. They can do a 3-day workshop and they'll teach you these like secrets and stuff, but like their life actually sucks. And if you saw how they lived and how they treated people and how their relationships were, you wouldn't want to swap lives with them and you wouldn't be taking advice from them. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what happened. But so Shelley had also converted to Christianity, this new age to Jesus pipeline, still very new age, calling it the way, talking about feminism with like ugh, it's like nauseating now. But then
Okay.
I was
She was both
still, I didn't know a lot about
oh sorry, I didn't
what
mean
were you
to
going to say?
interrupt, but I was really curious. She was both, she became a feminist while she was a born again Christian, or she was one and then became a born again
It's
Christian.
wild. She's all about feminine embodiment. And like, I think it's less about feminist ideals and about becoming like a woman that's good to your man, kind of like biblical femininity, but
Right.
definitely more like this new age. I don't know how much you've seen about the Mary Magdalene cult and
Mhm.
where they start like really worshiping Mary and being it gets a little like kind of sexual too. So she kind of got into that. I don't know much about that. Maybe some of your listeners can be like, oh my gosh, I've read and heard this. But I really grieved the abortions that I had done. I really grieved the sex work that I had done. And so I really craved this purity, this healing. That was something that I was thinking, when I'm awake and when I'm hanging out with Shelly down in South Carolina. And but the dream also happened in South Carolina. And so I was at my house in Mechanicsville where I was second childhood home, and there was entities that were carrying me from like my head and my feet. I couldn't move. They had me and they were carrying me. We have it's like a 7,000 square foot house in Mechanicsville. Sounds fancy, but it's dark and stinky and gross. Don't think it's fancy, but it's big. And they were taking me down this dark hallway, and I remember being so scared. I called out for my mom in the dream, and a light showed up, like a light at the bottom, of my vision. And the moment that light showed up, they dropped me. And because of the environment that I was in, there was all this satanic panic going on. The Travis Scott concert had just happened. I was looking at all these, satanic images in Hollywood, and this was all in my mind. So I was like, that had to have been Jesus. But there was no actual sign that it was Jesus, but it was just a white light. But I assumed that it was because living with Shelley White Light, and she was like, "Wow, that's really powerful." And because of that, I was like, "I need to read the Bible. I need to study." And I did kind of like you said, I was definitely afraid of like the demons. I had done a ecstatic dance. I mentioned that. I had done a channeling, like this woman that I met through ecstatic dance channeled pets and animals. And I had lost one of my pets, Sir Charles, tragically. And there's a whole long story, but she did some channeling for me multiple times. I've lost two pets tragically, and it was kind of a surreal experience. Again, some truth could have been happening there, but she had convinced me, and the Christian community had convinced me that I was actually talking to demons. And maybe that's true too. I don't fucking know. But it got me very scared, and that I was really playing with things that I didn't understand, and that I needed Jesus to protect me, and that I'm a fool for doing such things, that I needed to be under, the great protection of the God of Zion and his son Jesus. Ugh. So yes, that's what I was gravitating towards. Fix me, purify me. I made mistakes in the past. I'm a sinful wretch. I'm a terrible feminist. I'm out of order. I need to be under the submission of my husband. I need to be under the submission of God. I've done all these things wrong. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Right, 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 right. And this woman, it sounds to me that she was a massive influence on you. Um, do you remember anything positive you picked up for her, or is it really this part of your life that you really think think back on as a huge lesson in well, probably not a pleasant lesson, but that these sorts of people, that did it give you an eye for the type of person that she was?
Yes, I would say, yeah, I live with no regrets, and I have so much mixtures of feelings towards people from my past. And when it comes to her, my past roommate, Shelley Whitelight, I sometimes stalk her and carefully, don't you dare like a post, you know what I mean? But I feel in my heart like she's getting married, and she's my age. She's 41. She's always wanted to be married. She's always want to have kids, and I really want that for her. Is that fucked up? Am I worried about her kids? I don't know. So I still wish her well, and genuinely in my soul of soul, I want her to be well. I want her to be taken care of. I want all of her dreams to come true. I also know that she's a scammer, and that she takes people's money, and she's a manipulator, and she's a liar. And so all those things are also true. So it's really confusing for me, but it was a really good lesson to kind of see, yeah, like even just recently, I learned that people can subscribe to your Substack because they hate you. I'm like too innocent for this world. I'm just like, what? I block. I'm like, I hate you. Bye. I don't want you in my chi. I don't want your chi in my chi. I do not understand that. So I'm still learning lessons like that, that people are manipulative. People take advantage of you. My heart and how I feel isn't the same as how others are going to treat me, if that makes sense. So yeah, I definitely learned thicker skin. I definitely learned a lot of discernment through that experience. It was still very jarring because, again, I was Groove of Megs. She's Shelley Whitelight, and there's all these other famous hoopers in the community, and they kind of chose sides. No one really understood because Shelley is so manipulative and has this amazing ability to twist situations around. So yeah, I lost more friends than just her through that situation. People thought that I was the bad guy. And that's fine because I was already the bad guy. I was already QAnon. I was already wasn't getting the vaccine. So they already had a negative kind of viewpoint of me. And so now I'm a Christian, and now I'm a, flat earther, or, it just goes on and on and on. So yeah, definitely lessons learned. And yet I still wish her love, oddly enough.
Well, that's quite noble of you, I think. I mean, it doesn't really help you either to carry the grudge with you. So, I mean, I do think it's healthy for your case. It's not like she's in your life anymore. She doesn't have any
Mm-mm,
influence over you anymore. It would be different if she did. But
that's true.
about the house that she lived in, would you say that was because you mentioned it was a filthy house, it was dark, it was not a nice place to be? Was that because of her and her practices, or do you think that the place already was that and it just attracted her because there's a resonance there?
So to clarify, the dream, I was discussing my household family home, which is dark and disgusting and gross. And so I was just describing it as like a big house, but it's like I didn't want people to think magnificent when I said big. I wanted him to think it's dark and scary and big.
Yeah.
But two separate houses. The dream took place in my childhood home. Where I was living with Shelley
Okay.
Whitelight was a house we were renting in Charleston.
Right.
But that's something I didn't really think about, and I think you're right. There's some things I don't like. Do you think this will be in the paid part
No.
of the conversation? No. Okay. So then I won't say there's some things I can include that I want to protect her for. But yes, she was definitely doing some practices in the house that were having to do with massaging and were making me and my husband, we were uncomfortable. I think that there was definitely some things going on that were not, she was trying to protect the space.
Mhm.
Like I had a lot of Buddhas and she asked for me to remove the Buddhas and she didn't like them being there. And she had a lot of candles with like, the archangels and all those images around. And so what was funny is because I didn't convert, like I lived with her for 6 months and then we had a huge falling out, huge fight. It was insane. I can't even like really remember a lot of it, but huge falling out, kicked her out. I took over the lease. So now I'm living in this huge house in Charleston by myself. And that's when I fell into Christianity. So I was not a Christian when we lived together, but what
Okay.
was kind of funny is I brought the Buddha statues back and or like when I had moved back before I'd converted, I'd brought the Buddha statues back. It was only like 2 more months until then I got rid of them myself. But one of them fell over and cracked right after I brought it back. And I thought that was like a sign, I was like, oh no, like there's still some Jesus energy in here from her, if that makes sense. So yeah, I hadn't converted by being around her, but she had introduced me to these concepts. I was obviously being respectful to them. I went to church with her multiple times with her family because I was really lonely and I don't have a connection with my family at all. And her mom and dad are so close. And I was like, oh, her mom would like buy me gifts and bring me cards, give me $20 sometimes. I'm like, I don't need that money, but it's like I felt like I was getting adopted, So there's a lot of moments like that.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see, I mean, why you would, because I have similar experiences with my growing up, especially with my mother, and the feeling of being really accepted by a family that's, I mean, like my in-laws in this case, who are not into any of all of this. But yeah, I do completely understand. It's um, it's like feeling something that you sorely lacked and missed as a child. It's a very welcome feeling. Can be misguiding, but live and learn, unfortunately. But yeah, I do
Yeah.
completely understand.
That was it. I was trying to fill this hole in my heart, and the Christians will say it's a God-shaped hole. The only thing that's going to fill that is the Lord of God. No. But yeah, I was definitely seeking, and that's why I was in the bodybuilding community. That's why I was in a multi-level marketing community. That's why I was then. There's a lot of similarities between how MLMs recruit and like evangelicals and
Oh,
religions, and the law of attraction really feeds into that, which I made a post, which is what I'm going to review because I try to share a lot. A lot of folks in the deconstruction space, ex-Christians, have been Christians their whole life and are falling into New Age. And I
yeah.
and I
Give me the link to that later, that article, and I will include it in the comment section
okay,
below.
great. Yeah, because I wrote how does law of attraction fuel multi-level marketing exploitation? So, and it's not just MLMs, it's also the fitness industry and the wellness industry because there's this concept of the new thought philosophy by like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Frank Mesmer, basically Finabus Quimby. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it's like if you think positive, you can change your life. And there's some truth in that. Duh. I mean, duh for like, I work as a mindset coach, a personal trainer. Obviously, we're trying to like get rid of some stinking thinking, victim mindsets, all that stuff. But, it comes a point where, or the secret, the law of attraction, there comes a point where you can't, like, can the kids in Gaza manifest all the war to stop? Fucking no. If I have thyroid conditions, can I manifest my health to stop? Like, it gets really dangerous really fast when you start to promise this positive thinking can manifest goals. It creates that unrealistic expectations and oversimplifies really complex realities. And that can be really harmful. And that's some of that hole in the heart stuff. You're trying to fill that up, and you don't understand that there's a lot of ideologies that'll swarm right in that might not fill you up with the right things.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can think yourself positively, and it is true that victim mindsets and all those things and always thinking negatively, that does impact a person's mental health and thus also their health and what is happening around them. If you're always focusing on the negative, then your life is going to be pretty shitty. But yeah, it's a mistake to think that because the world is still there. Predatorial people are still out there. You may rub up against people like that without knowing, and you thinking positively. I mean, that might make you blind to such danger, and you're running right into traps they lay out for you. It can really backfire.
There's so much cult-like activity in these environments because of that. It can very much backfire. There's, financial exploitation. There's a lot of podcasts that are coming up. Sounds a little bit culty is one of them. They're one of my favorites, but they talk about the Nexium cult. There's sexual cults. There's really cult-like environments. That's what MLMs are, but they're more like coercive control environments, but they're based in like an entrepreneurial space. But there's a lot of Christianese, spiritual language also in these environments. I think a lot of folks are genuine seekers. I don't think everyone's a grifter. Like I wasn't a grifter. I'm still not a grifter. Uh, but so there's a lot of discernment you can make to tease out the different types of folks in these environments. But yeah, the whole love and light, everything is all good, that universalist concept, way of thinking, I think is foolish and rooted in kind of that Christian universal morality or the liberalism concepts that I've deconstructed out of. I'm more aware than that. I mean, we're dealing with bigger issues. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Did you meet a lot of those "we are all one" people?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. And uh, I understand what they're saying to some extent in regards to like that we all have similar human experiences and stuff like that. And I think that, if I saw, yeah, I just don't think all cultures are equal. I don't think all humans are equal. I don't think all souls are equal. And so I think there's the diversity that can be in pagan cosmology is easily lost in these new age worlds. They act like they have this hierarchy of beings, and like you said, it's all this cherry picked nonsense. And that's the biggest gripe I think I have with that. But is that not what we're also? I don't know. I guess that's not what a lot of folks are doing in these like neo pagan communities. Most folks aren't cherry picking. What I've heard is that you need to pick a pantheon and stick with it. So you really shouldn't be picking and choosing gods and stuff. What do you think about all of that? I was just trying to say, are people picking and choosing and doing that in the neo-pagan world while I'm trying to criticize that I'm just trying to make sure I'm not doing any double standards, is what I'm saying.
Well, that is a question that has a really large answer, which I'm not sure I can completely get to the bottom of it. But I
Maybe
think,
another episode.
well, I'll give a answer. Um, well, the cherry picking, it kind of depends. Um, if you have a serious interest in a certain deity or in the practices and the religiosity around certain deities, I think that can be quite healthy. And there's also such a thing as an academical interest. So you can have just the interest to know without really wanting to practice it yourself. As far as pantheons go, I've always said this, and Fiona says this too, and I do. Fiona Edgar, by the way, um, I have experienced this to be true for myself. Um, that if I stuck with my ancestral pantheon, so from the part of the world that I am um, from that was formed by the people that were like me, that live like me, from my own ancestor pool, that resonated so deeply that everything else sort of became uninteresting up to that point. Now, I say uninteresting, that doesn't mean that I will not cannot have an interest in, let's say, Shintoism. I do actually. I find it very interesting. But as far as practicing goes, I don't think I will ever step outside of my ancestral pantheon, because not only does it resonate so deeply, these people lived in the environment. uh, It's syncretic with the environment very much. And our environment is something that we become genetically attuned to. Like, I noticed that a lot when I moved to Italy. They're like, I can't deal with this heat. While Italians are like, no, it's fine, just put it on air conditioning. Even with the air conditioning, I suffer. I truly do suffer. I can't take this heat. I'm made for the cold, for colder environments. That's why there are runes of ice, there are runes of hail. That's the sort of things that I am used to. So I can never go to, let's say, a pantheon from a country that is warmer than what my genetics are primed for, because it won't resonate with me. I will have an academical interest in it, but no, I won't practice that. What I will do is show respect. For instance, there is a whole pagan revival here in Rome. I forgot their name, but I contacted them recently, that are reviving the old shrines to Jupiter and to Mars and to Minerva. And I asked them, like, can I come by? Because I would like to leave an offering of some flowers of or something, a little token. That I will do, because I do think that these things have power, and I do want to be on good standing with them. I don't want to be antagonistic towards local deities or deities that are tied to particular areas or lands. But at the same time, I will take my own gods with me where I go.
Mm. I appreciate that clarification. And so for me, have been studying or yeah, academically and then trying to get to know my ancestors. And then with the DNA information that I got earlier this year, I found out that I'm 50% Northern Italian. And my whole life I was told I was English Celtic. So I still am very much gravitated towards Celtic deities and lineage because I think I was just surrounded by fairies and like my mom wasn't into it any unfortunately. Mm, but yeah, now I'm like just really torn, I guess, because 50% is a rather large chunk. I am 14% Scottish or Gaelic or something. And I have a little bit of Nordic, but yeah, 50% is a large chunk. And so I did find someone on Instagram that just wrote a book about Italian folklore, but her book hasn't dropped until I'll get it like September 2nd. So I'm hoping she'll be willing to come on the podcast once I read it. So yeah, I don't know if you know any of that, but yeah, I hear you on wanting to honor the local spirits. Like I'm here in Virginia, and I think there's a lot from just the history of the United States here, and I'm like right here in the Jamestown, Yorktown, Williamsburg historical triangle. And I was born and raised in Richmond, which is not far from where we are. There's still a lot of history in Richmond as well. And I did a land offering around the fall equinox and set up an altar outside by a stump right by our pond garden. Maybe I told you this, but not here in this interview. But the next day, we do have a doggy door, but a big, huge bullfrog the size of my hand came in the next day, hanging out in the kitchen. And I've lived here 3 years and I've not had a frog in the house. And it just so circumstances, it happened the day after I left an offering by the pond. It was so huge for me. I was like, the land spirits are talking to me. And then I've been doing a lot more, like I've been doing a lot more altar work and spirit work since. And we've already had a better garden produce. And of course, there's obviously, we've been working with the soil and there is our third season here. So there's some other factors that are going towards it. But I am just giddy as a gumdrop to think that, working with the land spirits, working with the gods and maybe having more of a fruitful harvest this year, considering all the things going on with the world, it could be the best summer yet to have more produce coming from my own backyard. And yeah, just I've been eating fresh raspberries, and there's something so magical about, yeah, something from the exact geolocation that you were waking up and breathing and eating something from that. I definitely think has some serious energetic nourishment that you don't get when you buy a berry from a farm across the country. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, I've always found is that food you grow yourself, even if it looks ugly, it will still taste better. It's like you can taste the love that went into it, the love and the
So
care,
fresh.
and it makes it more nutritious somehow. Because I always
And the
feel less
sunshine, I can still
hungry
like,
afterwards.
yeah, is more filling. And maybe there's a lot more satiation coming to like when you grow your own too. There's like a lot of satisfaction you get in that. But yeah, there's something like I feel like I love when I eat fresh berries. I feel like I'm literally tasting sunshine.
I said about oranges when tasted the first
Mm.
orange that I ever grew. I said that to my man as well. It tastes like sunshine, literal sunshine.
I can't imagine. I like killed my friggin' lemon tree. It's tough because we're pretty warm zone, but tropical still we have to take care of in the winter, especially. And so I would love to be able to grow my own oranges, but yeah, that was not successful, but we've got strawberries and raspberries. But yeah, I would love to like juice my own orange juice one day. I would feel ultimate homemaker status.
I'd love to send you some seeds, but unfortunately, it doesn't really work that way with seeds. You need to cut a little branch off and grow roots from that one. Otherwise, you run the risk of quite significant quality decline. I learned that the hard way, by the way.
I bet. Well, my husband is a bonsai expert and is obsessed with trees. And so once he can retire, I think we will. His focus has always been on a food forest. It's just he works full
Oh,
time. So
yeah.
I hope as we shift into his retirement years, we will be able to, yeah, work more on our fruit trees and fine tuning production. Because right now we're just literally feeding the squirrels and the birds with a lot of fruit right now. And I need to figure out because we don't like using pesticides and herbs. So I'm trying to use cages and determents and maybe feed the animals a little bit, but also try to save some for me.
Mm. That there's a balance there, of course. And I think what you're doing there, what you're saying, not using pesticides and not being aggressive towards animals that come, well, steal, quote unquote. I do think that that helps the spirits of the land around you to be at ease because you can sense that in the land when they are not at ease. It's just very uncomfortable to be in a place like that. And it can feel quite threatening because it is.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point. And I hope they can feel that intention too. I do struggle. Like right now, there are these little caterpillars that are all over my hardy hibiscus, and so I go out there and manually kill them, or they're beetles, and I struggle. I do struggle to like crush life. I typically knock the beetles off into a bowl of water, and then I carry them out to my chickens. Then I feel like I'm at least contributing to the circle of life. It helps a little bit, but yeah, it's silly that I'm like, or I hit a butterfly the other day when I was driving, and I was distraught. I was like, I have a butterfly garden. I was like, but I couldn't swerve. It's just a butter. I'm not even making this up. It was intent. I saw it like flailing in my rearview mirror on the road. I was like, huh, I'm an evil person. It's awful.
Well, about the bugs in the garden, I find that is a very female thing, actually. Men don't seem to have these reactions, but a lot of women do. It's like, oh no, I don't want to kill it. It's just a bug, but in the meanwhile, it's destroying your garden. So,
It is a balance. It is silly because I'm like, I don't like you, but you're alive. It's this, delicate balance. So I think that's, yeah, the win is like, let me do it manually. Let me, because now the squash bugs are coming and I only got 3 pumpkins last year. So it's like 4 times a day you have to be out there with the bugs. So anyways, we got off topic, but I do always being connected to the land, I think is what brought me back. There's some crossovers between New Age spirituality and paganism,
yeah.
or maybe not. Maybe it looks like from the surface and it might look like crossovers. And
Well,
I
the
think
cherry picking, it looks
perhaps,
crossover because cherry picked.
yeah, you're right. And then I think it's just, oh, I just feel like that's where I need to lean on you and Fiona's insights because there's large differences between, if we want to say heathen spirituality over paganism, because pagan is such a loaded word and a slur sometimes, but also it's when you say it, everyone kind of knows what you're referring to at the same time. But if you were to say, here I am interviewing you, what would be the big difference between like New Age spirituality and paganism and like the approach? Or, is there like because I feel like there is, but I can't articulate it because I'm still such a novice
I feel
to
New
it.
Ageism is not a real spirituality. I think that is a coping mechanism, a very unhealthy coping mechanism. And I think that real paganism is basically just religion. I do. Much like, for instance, those people that go through those mega churches, for instance, where they're all being spastics and shaking, and the priests say, like, begone, demon. I don't think that is religion, nor do I think that is, well, it is spiritual, because I do think something on a spiritual level happens there, but nothing good. And I also think there are lots of pretenders and fakers in that just want the spotlight on them for a little bit. It's probably the most attention that they got. These people probably struggle in many areas of their life. And it can feel quite good to have even pretend that people care about you, if only for the 5 minutes that the priest is pretending to have an entity exorcised from you. That's very sad, and I do feel sympathy for that. I have empathy for people like that, for the same reason that I have empathy for people that that get involved in cults, because I mean they are missing something. I mean that something is what cults prey on actually, or where they get your hooks in you. Um, it's unfortunate. It's sad, but yeah, that's the difference in my opinion. That New Ageism is mostly just escapist cope, and paganism, for lack of a better word, heathenry, is a religion.
To me, I feel like it's a coming home. It's like
Mm.
the opposite energy in a way. It's like, and that just came to me when I was listening to you speak. It feels like, mm, yeah, that craving of actually belonging so deeply. And that I think is the issue of modernity, right? We have this social fragmentation, this individualization that liberalism has done. And Christianity also played a huge role in, and that's what I just talked about in the Christian inheritance of the West in my latest article about this dislodging from the pre-Christian societies, this dislodging of our ancestral and local gods being connected to the land, connected to the seasons, connected to the solstice. That dislodging is what I mean by like kind of we're coming back home to that. It feels much different. It doesn't feel like an escape. I guess the missing element for me is that just most of these humans that I'm interacting with are online and they're not in real life.
Yeah.
And I do have some connections where I should be meeting up with people in IRL, as the kids say these days, in real life. And I'm excited about that. But I think that's the key thing a lot of folks are, I'm hoping we're shifting to is like making connections online and then taking them offline and getting back into real life, like you said, getting back into the actual environment, into nature, and learning how to do rituals like
Well,
and
there is
offerings.
also a big element of blood and soil there, even for the European diaspora, because you are somebody that grows and farms things on your own property. I mean, you are actively working with soil. You um, you probably got hurt. You cut yourself a few times, hurt yourself in general. That just happens. So you've literally bled for this land. You do form a connection with that. There's lots of power in blood, which is something that we should keep for the second part, because that's not YouTube friendly and they're not gonna like it at all. But that's also why I think that a lot of sincere pagans that I know are so invested in nature. And I don't mean the green agenda people, like all solar energy, you must be vegan. Not that at all, because you raise the animals, you raise the plants, you know what it is like, how gritty it can get, and it does get pretty gritty. It is hard work, and if you're constantly in that scene of festivals, you're constantly drugged up, you are never going to plow your field the next day. It's hard work. It is very hard work. You've bled and you sweat for your land. You form a real connection with it, which is something that you're never going to do in those scenes, because it's inconvenient for your first the drop off that you have the next day and your next high. It gets in the way of that, unfortunately. And that's also why I think a lot of it is just cope.
Hmm. Copium. Yeah, there's a lot of that in today's society. And I think you're right. There is so much pain and hardship, even just with raising the chickens. I've lost 20 in the 3 years living here. And that's through ospreys, fox, hawks, disease. We just had to put down our rooster. My husband had to kill it just the other day. And that's hard on him, hard on me, hard on the flock. But he was abusing them, hurting them, overmating them, really mean to us, hurting us. Like he was the most psycho rooster I've ever been around in my life. And so and we had a really good one named Ned Flanders last summer that got. I didn't know what I had with old Nettie, but yeah, it's been really difficult. And we haven't raised any meat animals like meat rabbits or quail or anything like that yet. But I do follow a lot of first generation farmers and learn from their experience of like raising their first flock of sheep or their first pigs and send them to slaughter and how emotional that can be. Um, yeah, I have blogged a little bit. I very much advocate against veganism because I think it's a first world eating disorder. I think it's based in industrialization. It's based in, yeah, goy slop. I don't like it. And it's also very that like kind of the guru status, like you have to follow me. I know what to tell you to do. There's a lot of that black and white thinking in wellness culture that's cult like, that's can be found in religion. You know, that's kind of this crossover. I did an episode. I think I've taken it down though because I wanted to edit it, but I was finding the similarities between high control religion, new age spirituality, and wellness culture. And there was, I think, five solid similarities in how they present information and all that, like mostly the black and white kind of thinking. And you made a comment about cults and people falling into cults, and smart people fall into cult-like environments. And I don't, that's a big stigma that we have to squash. And so many people think they're too smart for that. That's why I probably thought that. I'm too smart for it until I realized I've been in multiple cults. Whoops, it's kind of
Well,
that 2024 was the year I
yeah,
realized I'd been so manipulated.
it never starts with fork over all your money and your properties. Eh? If they would start off with that, then nobody would ever join a cult. It starts with little things, the with hooking you, with giving you something that you miss. And these people, I mean, cults are run by highly predatory people, and like a real predator, they can almost smell that in you. They have an eye for prey. It's it's a real thing.
Yeah, and love and light doesn't protect you from that.
No, no, it sure doesn't. In fact, it would make you more susceptible to it, if anything else. Well, I think we have reached about an hour now. I suggest we quit it here for the YouTube part, and then the second part will be on Substack. For my paid subscribers, the link of that will also be in the description. Um, Megan, thank you so much for sharing your experience here, and we'll see you in part two.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. Looking forward to hearing your comments, your feedback, and your insights.
Definitely.